Thank you all for being here. It's always great to have this gathering at the beginning of the academic year, even though, as you'll realize, for me, it's definitely tinged with a emotional note, given that this will be my last year at Portland State, at least as a president. But let me just make it very clear that I will never be a lame duck. I don't even plan to be a lame Viking. But let me take this occasion to both look back a bit over the past 8 years and look ahead to not just this year, but beyond that. And let me just start with the good news that you may already have heard, that once again, US News and World Report ranked us on their list of the most innovative universities. And this time we cracked the top 10. We were ranked on the number 9 spot. I think that's something for all of us to be proud of. Arizona State, Stanford, and MIT are ahead of us, but we're ahead of, such slouch places as Duke, NYU, Cornell, Rice, Brown, Berkeley, USC, and Harvard. And even better, there are no other Oregon schools on the list. Now, being most innovative, I think that really is a big part of who we are and how we've been working from the day we were founded, because we had to be innovative to survive. At my first Convocation address in 2008, I talked about PSU as a place of struggle, a place of hope, and a place of glory. Now, you all know about the struggle all too well, starting with the Vanport flood, the fights with our sister institutions, budget cuts, and so on. Hope we always have. I think especially at this time of year. I realize that I have been on the academic calendar for 60 of my 66 years. So, September is just deeply baked into me as a time where hope springs eternal. Seeing the new students, the new colleagues, getting ready for a new legislative session, even there, hope springs eternal. But, glory, the glory piece, we don't really celebrate enough. And this ranking for innovation is just one piece of that glory. It recognizes our work on Rethink PSU, our focus on sustainability, our new budget model, and our history of community engagement. This community engagement, what in my inaugural address I talked about as leadership through partnership, is really a deep part of who we are. It's partnership on campus, it's partnership off campus. We are partnering with some of the biggest organizations in the Portland metropolitan region. City government, Multnomah County, local school districts and not-for-profits, Intel, Nike, Daimler, Mercy Corps, the list goes on. And of course that results in tremendous opportunities for our students in terms of jobs, internships, research partnerships with faculty, and frankly, much greater visibility for the university than existed before. Now, the side benefit of having those organizations hire our students is, of course, not irrelevant. Just recently, Mark Rosenbaum, who just stepped down as chair of the foundation, did some interesting research where he went on LinkedIn and looked for the largest employers in the Portland metropolitan area, what schools people listed that they're alums of, and he just compared PSU with U of O and OSU. So these data understate the reality because not everybody is on LinkedIn, right? But at Intel, we have 1,488 PSU alums on LinkedIn, which is more than OSU and U of O combined. At Nike, we have 916, which is more than either OSU or U of O. And again, we have more than those two institutions combined at OHSU with 906. Same is true at the City of Portland, Legacy, PGE, Northwest Natural, and TriMet. And we have more alums than either U of O or OSU at Columbia, MODA, Precision Cast Parts, the State of Oregon, Tektronix, Standard Insurance, and the list goes on to smaller places. I mean, that's a heck of a base of PSU alums that are really the engine that makes the economy of this region and this state work. Now, of all of our partnerships, probably the deepest and most important one is the one with OHSU. You all know, of course, about the Collaborative Life Sciences Building, which has been a great advance for our teaching, for our students, and for our researchers. The Stadtcenter, whose remodeling and the building of the Viking Pavilion would not have been possible without OHSU, a $7 or $8 million investment in making that happen. And now they're also investing additional money in creating a new sports medicine clinic in the basement of that building. And then, of course, the School of Public Health, which is just, I started talking about it in 2009. It's one of the reasons why, as a president, you got to stick around for at least 8 or 9 years, because it just takes a while. But we're just thrilled. We're thrilled to have David Banksburg here as a dean. We're thrilled with the collaboration with our colleagues at OHSU, because I think that school will greatly contribute both to our research funding, to our fame locally and nationwide. And I think all the work that the faculty did to make that happen from 2 institutions has just been amazing. And the $24 million Exetel grant, the largest grant we have, which is collaborative, both with OHSU, with PCC and others, will further help grow our reputation as a center of excellence in the health field. Now, in addition to these things, we have become an essential part of the region's economy. We worked out an urban renewal deal with the city, transportation deals with TriMet and others, and we have become, as you know, a major real estate developer. The face of PSU has just changed enormously. And people like Dundar and many others who have been here for a long time know how much it's changed just over the last decade. During my time here, we have finished or put under construction or are planning 10 new big buildings. We finished Shattuck Hall, Lincoln Hall, the Academic Student and Rec Center, the Science Research and Teaching Center, the University Point Residence Hall, and the Collaborative Life Sciences Building. As you know, we're under construction with the Business School and the Stadtcenter and Viking Pavilion. We will start on Neuberger in the spring of 2017, and then we will get legislative approval, if things go as planned, for the School of Ed building just across from the Rec Center. That project is listed #1 on the capital request for the university, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. You know the old joke about university presidents having an edifice complex? I proudly plead guilty. And if you don't think space matters, talk to colleagues who work in the dungeons of Neuberger, and you will know. But less tangible dimensions are changing as well. Our commitment to diversity and equity, which we've talked about always, has become much more front and center in who we are, what we do, and how we do it. It's reflected in the huge increase in the diversity of our student population, and it's reflected very much in the strategic plan. We've also, over the last 8 years, upped the professionalism of our administrative and support staff to new levels. Now, at times, I hear people expressing regret about that the old PSU felt more like a family. You know what? That family was usually patriarchal and often looked more like an old boys network. So give me the professionalism of today. As part of that also is an easier to understand, a more transparent budget process, and increased outside recognition. You know, in addition to the most innovative ranking, we're firmly established as a national and international leader in sustainability. We're one of the friendliest campuses in the nation for the LGBTQ community. Our business programs continue to go up in the national rankings. And most importantly, we're ranked among the most hipster campuses in the country. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because we wouldn't want to lose that one. And when I started, the Honors College was just a kind of small place way off in the corner of the campus, and now it has over 800 students, which I think says a lot about the quality of students that we're now attracting to the university. Our research funding continues to grow. It's gone up by over 60% in the last 8 years. And very interestingly, there was an Oregonian article written by Andrew Athena. I think Andrew is here somewhere. It was written a month and a half ago about my stepping down. And it raised the question of what does PSU want to be when it grows up? A research university or a teaching university? I'm telling you, at 70 years old this year, PSU is all grown up. And the question has been answered emphatically. We are both. We are committed to remaining accessible, to a broad range of Portlanders, and we are committed to being an urban research university. The new strategic plan makes that very clear. We're now one of the big 3 universities in Oregon. When Richard LaRiviere left, we took the lead role in getting independence from OUS, and it would not have happened otherwise. As a result, we now have had our own board of trustees for the past 2 years, and that's a change that will continue to pay dividends over the decades to come. And as you know, at the board's request, we held a campus-wide discussion for a year and a half about our future, from which we then developed the new 5-year strategic plan. While there's a lot more verbiage in that, basically it reaffirmed, let knowledge serve the city, but it also laid out some new challenges. And let me just talk now, as a university president always must, about the challenges that I see, not just for next year, but really that will continue to be important for this institution in the years to come. The first one relates to student retention. In my first convocation address, I talked about the importance of improving student retention. I have to admit, it's been my biggest frustration. We have not made the progress that I had hoped. And frankly, that's one of the main impediments for our growing reputation for quality, because people look at those numbers, and with the new federal emphasis on accountability, they look at those numbers even more, and they're often misrepresented and misunderstood, but nevertheless they're there. Now we know that a very easy way to raise our retention would be to raise our admission standards, but that's not what we want to do. We want the mix of students we now have, at the undergraduate level for sure, but we have to make better progress on graduating more of them. And we continue to work hard on that. It is everyone's responsibility. The faculty in the classroom, the staff who deal with inevitable problems, administration to figure out how to remove obstacles and streamline processes. It's a challenge that we all have to take seriously. The second area of research. As I said, we've made good strides, up by about 60%, up to about 65 million a year from the 40 million where we were when I came. But really to have the efficient economies of scale and the visibility nationally, we really got to get to at least the $100 million mark. We don't want to fall too far behind our colleagues at the U of O. OSU and OHSU will always be far ahead of us, but we got to stay close to the U of O on that. That may mean making some tougher choices than we have made about strengthening faculty in places where they can secure higher research funding and selecting areas of strength. Always a very tough task in a university where we try to love everything and everybody. A third big challenge relates to the curriculum and pedagogy. You know, if we're going to be successful in attracting students and being relevant, both at the undergraduate and graduate levels, we have to continually refresh what we offer, and also to keep competitors at bay. With the new governance structure, it is easier for U of O and OSU, and with online learning, of course, for institutions from all over the world to offer programs in our home market. And if we just say, we don't want you there because we want this turf, that's not a very strong argument. The strong argument is, you don't need to be here because we're already doing this, and we got the market locked up. We got the niche. We have to also become more tech savvy, even though we've made tremendous strides in that. Teach in ways that the students of tomorrow learn, which is going to have to include more differentiated teaching as we learn more and more about differentiated learning styles. And we have to be open to new forms of credentialing and deal with the reality that students can get knowledge and learning from many places. Universities no longer have a monopoly on learning channels, and we can close our eyes and ears to that, but we'd be better off to figure out how we incorporate that into our credentialing and our teaching. The topic of equity, very important one that I mentioned before. Just the demographic change in Portland since I've come have been enormous, especially the growth of the Latino population, which again I talked about in my first address, but has just continued apace. And as you know, the nation is changing to a majority-minority population. We see the dramatic changes that causes in the power dynamics nationally. We've seen it in everything from Black Lives Matter to the sort of defensive reactions in presidential campaigns. The good old liberal approach of sort of integrating people of color and according to our rules of the game is no longer working. It no longer applies. We have to reinvent what it means to be diverse and what it means for our own actions, our own language, our institutions. We can't just measure it by the numbers. It's about how we change what we do. As you know, our strategic plan calls for applying an equity lens to all of our decisions, all of our policies. It's a process that we're all learning that we will have to rediscover collectively. The plan also talks about changing the curriculum to accommodate knowledge that matters to unrepresented groups that hasn't been highlighted before. Changing pedagogy to reflect a very diverse student body, and doing far more to make the campus safe and welcoming to all. The next challenge, and this is truly a perennial one, of course, is funding. You know, we've been chronically shortchanged by the legislature, even though the legislature began to reverse that trend last year, and also the funding formula began to change. But boy, we still have a long way to go, and we still get less money per student credit hour or per degree than any of the other institutions. We can't just wait for the state. We have an absolute need to attract more non-resident students if we want to remain fiscally healthy. We also will continue to press and will need to continue to push for local revenue. Even though we had to withdraw our business payroll tax campaign, we are working hard with the College Affordability and Success Coalition, a partnership with local businesses, to find ways to give Portland State at least $25 million a year in new funding. The check is not yet in the mail. We're working on it. We have to increase philanthropy. We're in the middle of a $300 million campaign, and we have a great partner in Bill Bolt and the foundation, and it gives me great confidence that we will succeed in that campaign. But very importantly, of course, and Bob Liebman already referred to this, we will have to keep up the fight in Salem, and much of what is possible there will depend on what happens with Measure 97 on November 8th. Final issue that I want to talk about briefly is that of free speech. As you know, very big topic around the nation in the academy, lots of presidents pronouncing on it. The basics of the issue of free speech are pretty clear, but the details and the specifics can get very murky. And obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but I've sort of, collectively with the executive committee, we've kind of figured out a layman's guide. It's just very important for everybody to realize how strongly the First Amendment protects speech, even despicable free speech. You know, the only exceptions have to do with obscenity, inciting to violence, or disrupting the business of the organization. So you can't come into the faculty senate or a classroom and just do whatever you want if you're disrupting the business. But advocating for a wall, or for divestment, or for or against guns on campus are allowed. As is even nastier stuff and name-calling. Now, just because we can't ban speech or punish speakers doesn't mean we're powerless when speech is offensive. We can express our individual or institutional disagreements or the condemnation of such speech. We can offer counterviews. We can organize opposition. But we cannot censor or punish speech we disagree with, and we cannot permit others to do so either, no matter how much any of us might want that at times. Now, things get even more complicated when speech seems to cross the line into harassment, because both Title VI and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act protect students' rights to an educational environment free of harassment based on race, color, national origin, or gender. So what happens if someone feels harassed by someone else's advocacy or free speech? It's very important to realize that there's a very high burden of proof on this notion of harassment. It needs to be severe, pervasive, or persistent, not just in the eyes of one person who might feel aggrieved, but by reasonable community standards. You can see where the murkiness comes in, but we have to realize there are real constraints on what we can do to stop speech that we might really disagree with. So we can't ban the speech or punish the speaker. We can provide countervailing views and support those who are negatively impacted by offensive or hateful speech. We, of course, all share the hope of having a community where free speech and counter speech is honored, where people will cooperate to create a welcoming and respectful environment. But no doubt there will be gray areas and areas of conflict, which in the end is part of being at a university. Now, the final challenge and opportunity is to find a new president. The search committee has been formed with, God help us, 21 people on it. Nothing like being nimble, but everybody's represented. Search firm has been hired. The job description and challenge and opportunity position paper will be written based on a lot of input from people. It will go beyond just the search advisory committee. And both our board chair, Pete Nickerson, and the chair of the Search Advisory Committee, Gail Castillo, the board member, will be happy to meet with groups and people to get input. But the important thing is, obviously, I think presidents matter. But in the long run, it's also true that I think the direction of this institution is set in many ways. I absolutely see no inclination on the side of the board to say, oh my gosh, we got to do something totally different. We got to find a totally different person. We have a strategic plan. The board has adopted the strategic plan. It's their plan. They are looking for somebody who will implement that strategic plan. Frankly, what this institution looks like, how we continue on this path of innovation and excellence, lies mainly with you, the faculty, the staff, the students, everybody else. I will work very hard this year to make it as productive as possible. I will personally focus on making sure the strategic plan continues to be implemented. I will focus on the funding issues, both in Salem, on the campaign, and the local coalition for college success and affordability, and helping where I can with the transition so that our executive leadership team is as strong as it can be to manage the operations of the university so that a new president can come in and decide where they might want to put some emphasis. As you know, I will, after this year ends, I will go on a sabbatical and I will then come back to my colleagues in the College of Urban and Public Affairs as a faculty member for at least a year, maybe longer. It depends on whether I succeed or fail at retirement. I don't know yet. So I look forward to exploring areas of collaboration in my post-presidential time. I want to thank all of you for your enthusiasm, your energy, everything you do every day to make PSU a wonderful place. Thank you all very much, and please join us for a reception in the back.